buried in the back of Greenstone's asset portfolio, which attracted me to the company. And having reviewed well over 500 different projects in the metals and mining sector over the past 8 or 9 years, I knew that this was a very rare opportunity. The facts for me are very simple. This is a very high-grade system with proven production and limited exploration below 250 metres. Historically, the Burbanks project has produced over 420,000 ounces at an average grade of 10.9 grams per tonne, and all of that production is largely from the upper 140 metres. This also includes 324,000 ounces at 22.7 grams per tonne from the underground alone. Just to put that into a little bit of context for everybody, that's a grade that's 4 to 5 times higher than the average underground gold mine in Australia that's currently mining. In my view, this is the typical story of an excellent asset, but for whatever reason has had the wrong strategy and the wrong focus for the past 2 or 3 decades. Over the past 6 months since joining, the new board and the new management have been working very hard to unlock this latent value. And that's included the appointment of a new board and management team, corporate rebranding, recapitalisation and shareholder consolidation. And that's resulted in, more recently, 2 new discoveries at both Burbanks North and Burbanks South, serving to extend our mineralised strike horizon from circa 2 kilometres to well over 4.5 kilometres now. And recently, we just announced our first maiden gold pour, which returned over $2.1 million in revenue to the joint venture. So look, that's the bridge story of the past 6 months. And now, looking forward, I'll walk you through the projects and what the next 6 months will look like for the company. And a disclaimer, which I'll perhaps leave to you to read in your own time. Despite the company IPOing well over 20 years ago, Greenstone still has a very well-preserved and clean capital structure. There's only, I guess, 2 material updates to mention here. Following yesterday's capital raise, where we raised $3.5 million, the shares on issue will increase to around 925 million shares, and our cash position will increase to around $495 million. $4.95 million, leaving us well funded for the next round of exploration. As part of the broader corporate rejuvenation process over the past 6 months, we've brought in 3 new directors, including myself. Importantly, Mike Edwards, who is our new chairman. Mike is a geologist by trade and capital market specialist, and was formerly the chairman over at Firefly Resources before merging with Gascoyne. Glenn Poole is our technical director and chief geologist. Glenn is a career geologist, an ex-Northern Star, and brings a very unique skill set to the organisation, covering both exploration geology and resource definition. Importantly for us, Glenn also worked out at the Kundana operations, which is around 25 kilometres north of us, previously owned by Northern Star, and is very much probably the closest and most direct analogue for what we're dealing with at Burbanks at the moment. Investment highlights. So I do say we've got a polymetallic portfolio. We have 2 principal gold assets centred on Coolgardie, the Burbanks Gold Project, which is our flagship gold asset, and the Phillips Fine Project. Outside of that, we also have the Mount Thirsty Cobalt Project, which has been the principal focus for the company for the preceding 12 years prior to the new board and management team starting. We do currently have a small trial underground mining operation underway, which I'll touch on later on in the presentation. And as mentioned earlier, we recently completed our first gold pour. The key point of differentiation for what the new team's going to do differently is exploration, and we have a very aggressive exploration program underway at the moment, recently announcing the recommencement of 6,500 metres of reverse circulation and diamond drilling at our Burbanks Gold Project. And as mentioned, we also have a long life cobalt asset, the Mount Thirsty Cobalt Project, which I'll again touch on later in today's presentation. Focusing now more directly on our 2 gold assets. Burbanks is very much our flagship gold assets. It's located just 35 minutes south of Kalgoorlie, which is obviously the epicentre of West Australian gold mining. Importantly for us, this means that the project is supported by a network of existing infrastructure, including sealed road access to site, grid power, and 3 toll treatment plants within a 50-kilometre radius of the mining licence. As mentioned earlier, Burbanks has a very long history of high-grade and shallow production, which has totaled over 420,000 ounces. And we do have an initial resource of 145,000 ounces across the project area. I would very much caveat that there's been a significant amount of reverse circulation and diamond drilling completed over the past 2 years, which hasn't been included in that more recent resource update. Importantly for us, however, is that mineralisation still remains open at depth beneath the historic mining centre, and that very little exploration has been undertaken below about 100 metres outside of that area. Given all of this prospectivity, we have a very aggressive exploration program currently underway, with drilling starting just over a week or two ago now. Outside of Burbanks, we also have the Phillips Fine project. It's still very much a focus for the company. It's located 75 kilometres northwest of Coolgardie. It was a historic mining centre in its own right, historically producing close to 35,000 ounces between 3 open pits, and mineralisation still remains open beneath all of those open pits. I won't spend too long talking through the history of the Burbanks Gold Project, but I think it is very important to understand why these assets have sat here for so long, underexplored and underdeveloped. And from my perspective, there's really 2 reasons. The first one's very much a corporate reason or corporate focus. So the previous focus for Greenstone for the past 12 years had very much been on the Mount Thirsty Cobalt project. And the second reason is really around strategy for the past 2 decades. So when Greenstone have had these assets, and when they have gone and done work on them, principally it's been focused on small scale and near-term cash flow generation. Unfortunately, whilst it served to preserve the capital structure of the company over that time, there was never really enough money to reinvest back into exploration at depth. And I guess that's what's presented this opportunity for us here today. I always like to include this slide in the presentation because I think it really demonstrates the true potential that we're dealing with here at Burbanks, with the average depth of mining and historical mining only down to 140 metres, whereas other gold mines across Australia will comfortably mine down to depths in excess of 800 to 1200 metres. As such, the exploration horizon beneath the existing workings, in our perspective, is immense, and that's without touching the broader 4-kilometre strike of the project area. This is arguably the most important slide, I think, in the entire presentation. So what we're looking at here is a long section, 4 kilometres from left to right, following the main mineralising structure, the Burbanks Shear Zone. In the centre of the project, you'll see the Birthday Gift deposit and the Main Lode deposit, or what we call the Burbanks Mining Centre, which has a strike extent of around 2 kilometres. The Birthday Gift and Main Lode underground mines historically produced close to 300 or over 320,000 ounces, of which there was very much a high-grade core at Birthday Gift, where over 180,000 ounces was produced at 27.4 grams per tonne from the top 110 metres. Importantly, within the historic mining areas of both Birthday Gift and Main Lode, these areas were only mined down to 110 and 275 metres respectively, and both having very little exploration below 250 metres, despite us already knowing that high-grade mineralisation remains open at depth. Additionally, there are large areas both to the north and to the south of the Burbanks Mining Centre, which have seen very, very little exploration below about 100 metres, and had been the focus of the recent exploration program late last year. Given this very limited amount of exploration, we're now undertaking a very aggressive exploration campaign at Burbanks. We recently completed just over 4,000 metres late last year, and we're embarking on another 6,500 metres drilling currently. Importantly for me, when I look at these high-grade systems, is these aren't narrow ore bodies. The average width of mining historically was anywhere between 1.9 to 2.4 metres, so it's very amenable to mechanised underground mining methods. Part of the trial mining operation, we have had twin boom and single boom jumbos underground quite successfully. So the next 4 slides will successively step through each one of the 4 main exploration centres. So Burbanks North, from our perspective, is, I think, the most promising and exciting exploration target that we currently have that we're currently exploring. Late last year, we proved that high-grade mineralisation exists beyond what we've termed the Northern Fault. More importantly, over the Christmas New Year period, we undertook a very detailed geological reinterpretation of some historical drilling that was done near surface and supports a small oxide resource. What we found was 3 high-grade plunges developing near surface, which have never been followed up on at depth. And there's some absolutely phenomenal intercepts sitting in things like 5 metres at 25 grams per tonne from 17 metres. But we currently have an exploration program planned with the rig due to turn up. We'll start drilling there within the next 2 to 3 weeks, and we have over 10 holes planned for that area. Main Lode is one of the 2 historic mining centres. Again, high-grade underground mining. In terms of forward-looking exploration, the multi-purpose drill rig is currently drilling the 4 northern holes that you see directly beneath Main Lode. On the completion of those holes, the drill rig will then move to Burbanks North. Birthday gift, as I mentioned earlier, was the higher grade of the 2 deposits, where they mined 180,000 ounces at 27.4 grams. Importantly for us, mining ceased at 110 metres, but there's a shaft down to around 275 metres, which was never mined, but confirmed that high-grade mineralisation is still open at depth. We have an existing resource over birthday gift of 95,000 ounces at 5.6 grams per tonne, and we know that there's a number of high-grade and underexplored footwall lodes, which were previously identified mining activities, but historically have never been a focus. And some of the highest grade intercepts that we've drilled across the project have come from those footwall intercepts, things like 4.7 metres and 462 grams. And Burbanks South was the second of the 2 discoveries which we announced late last year. This is a virgin area which has never seen any historical mining activities, and it's a continuation of the same mineralised structure. What we identified was 3 parallel lodes of mineralisation, which are continuous over a strike of 400 metres and drilled down to a depth of only 100 metres currently, but remains open in all direction. This will be, again, a focus for us going forward, and we hope to be back in there within the next 4 to 6 months. I had mentioned earlier that we do currently have a trial mining agreement operation underway with our joint venture partner, FMR. And we had recently completed our first gold pour just about 6 weeks ago, pouring 840 ounces with around $2.1 million. The great thing about this joint venture for us is our JV partner assumes all of the mining financial risk before profits then split 50-50. All the underground development here is now largely complete, and we're now moving into stoping activities, and we expect an additional 60,000 to 75,000 tonnes of high-grade mined and processed over the next 6 months. The real purpose of this underground mining operation is to provide us with valuable technical information which will be used to guide future production decisions across the project. Phillips Find is the second gold asset which sits within our portfolio. As mentioned, this is around 75 kilometres north west of Coolgardie. There was historic production here from 3 open pits collectively mining 33,000 ounces. We did complete a program here late last year and turned up some really nice intercepts. We'll be back in here at some point this year to test those. Final part of the puzzle, I guess, is the Mount versus Cobalt asset, which in a very short summary is fundamentally a very good asset. One thing that's holding the project back and taking the next step forward is the fragment ownership structure. So we're working very hard in the background to bring those 3 pieces of the puzzle back together again. In the background, we're also looking at a number of optimisation studies to reduce the project, improve the project. That's really centred around increasing the recoveries of both the nickel and the cobalt, but also looking at potentially going further downstream to produce direct precursors that can be utilised in the sector. So that's the story. I thank you all very much for your time today.